What if the figure humanity has long waited for is already among us and we just haven't noticed? People from every faith are expecting someone. Christians wait for Christ, Buddhists for Maitreya, Hindus for Krishna, and Muslims for the Imam Mahdi. But what if these aren't separate expectations at all? What if they're all describing the same thing, a single idea that cuts across religions, cultures, and traditions? Here's the surprising part. This isn't just about religion. It's about a concept called the Christ principle, not a person, but a type of consciousness. It's an energy or awareness that, according to esoteric teachings, appears at critical moments in history to guide humanity forward. It's not limited to one faith or figure. This principle has been expressed through Krishna, Jesus, and others throughout time, not to create more religion, but to help humanity grow. And here's the real twist. The return of this world teacher isn't just a prophecy, it's a process. According to these teachings, this figure will not arrive to save the world for us. Instead, he will show us how to save it ourselves by awakening what's already inside us. The message is simple. Each of us carries a spark of this divine potential. The reappearance of this teacher is meant to trigger that realization, not replace our role in the world's transformation. The central idea is clear and deeply practical. The power to change the world lies within ordinary people, not distant leaders. That includes you. This isn't mystical fluff. It's a shift in how we think about responsibility, change, and purpose. Look around today. Economic stress, political division, and environmental breakdown are pushing people to ask deeper questions. Why are things so out of balance? Where is this all heading? The theory here is that these crises are not signs of collapse, but signals that something new is ready to emerge. A transition from separation and conflict to unity and cooperation. This isn't about waiting for someone else to fix things. It's about recognizing that the answers have to come from within us, and that the arrival of this world teacher is really an awakening inside humanity itself. In other words, the real question isn't will he return, but will we be ready when he does? But this time, the teacher isn't coming to deliver a sermon from a mountaintop or perform miracles to win attention. That model doesn't fit the world we live in today. In a time when anyone with a smartphone can broadcast their ideas globally, the return of a world teacher has to look different, more subtle, more personal, and more collective. One major insight often overlooked is this. Transformation isn't top-down anymore. People don't respond to authority the way they once did. We're skeptical of grand claims. We distrust institutions. But we do respond to truth when it feels real and lived. That's why the teacher's work this time won't be to command or convert. It will be to activate, to empower ordinary people to think differently, act courageously, and live with a sense of service beyond the self. And the biggest shift? The teacher won't work alone. The return is said to come with a group, a collective of individuals called the Masters of Wisdom, people who've evolved beyond personal ego and now work quietly behind the scenes to support humanity's progress. They don't seek power or recognition. They work in science, education, economics, fields where meaningful change actually happens. It's not a fantasy. Think about it. Throughout history, leaps in human understanding have often come from unexpected individuals ahead of their time. Reformers, inventors, activists. Many of them report moments of profound inspiration or insight that shaped their work. What if those insights weren't random? The esoteric view says they aren't. It claims there's a kind of spiritual infrastructure at work, something like a relay system for progress that guides humanity when we reach a breaking point. And that's exactly where we are now. New questions are surfacing everywhere. What do we do when old systems don't work? What's worth trusting? Who are we when our jobs, politics, and technologies fail to give us meaning? These are not just personal dilemmas. They are signs that something deeper is changing, a shift in consciousness. And that's exactly the kind of opening that invites a world teacher to reemerge. History shows a pattern. When humanity hits a wall, morally, culturally, or existentially, something new emerges. This isn't mystical thinking, it's observable. Look at the turning points in civilization. Buddha appeared when spiritual life in India had stagnated. Jesus emerged during a time of social and political oppression in the Roman Empire. These appearances weren't random. They matched moments of global pressure, when people began asking deeper questions about justice, truth, and meaning. The surprising insight here is this. These teachers didn't just show up because humanity was suffering. They appeared because enough people had reached a point where they were ready to hear something new. That readiness is the key. It's not about a God choosing a special time to act. It's about us reaching a point of internal demand. A new tool doesn't appear until the need for it becomes clear. You don't invent a light bulb unless people are frustrated with darkness. In the same way, a world teacher arrives when human consciousness has matured enough to use the message, not just admire it. And that's where we are now. You can see it in the shift toward community-driven action, ethical business, sustainable design, and mental health awareness. These movements aren't spiritual on the surface, but they reflect a deeper hunger for balance, responsibility, and shared well-being. They show that we're starting to value what the old systems ignored. But there's another twist. This time, the teacher's role isn't to start the work, it's to confirm it. Many of the values associated with spiritual growth, cooperation, service, justice, ecological care, are already rising from the grassroots. The world teacher's job isn't to push these changes into motion, but to help them cohere, to connect the dots, and accelerate the process. This is a massive shift from the traditional savior narrative. It's not about waiting for rescue. It's about being part of a guided but self-driven evolution. And that changes everything. Most people think of Christ as a person, typically Jesus. But in the esoteric view, Christ isn't just a historical figure. It's a universal principle. It's not a name. It's a function, a specific kind of consciousness that appears through different individuals when the world needs it most. Here's a helpful way to think about it, like a job title. President doesn't always mean the same person. It's a role filled by different people over time, each bringing their own approach. The Christ is similar. It's not exclusive to Jesus. According to these teachings, it's a position within a larger system of spiritual guidance. And right now, that position is said to be held by a being known as Maitreya. This shift in perspective changes the whole story. It means the teachings of Christ, Krishna, Maitreya, and others weren't isolated messages from different cultures. They were expressions of the same guiding energy, adapted to different times and needs. This principle isn't just out there somewhere waiting to reappear. It's already present within each of us. In practical terms, this means the values it represents, compassion, wisdom, justice, aren't foreign. They're built into the human blueprint. That's why we instinctively respond to certain stories or leaders. When we see courage, humility, or service, something in us recognizes it. That's the Christ principle in action, not as dogma, but as a natural human response. Even more important, this principle is meant to awaken collectively, not just individually. In other words, it's not about a few enlightened people rising above the rest. It's about humanity reaching a point where many begin to live from this higher awareness in everyday life. This helps explain some of today's social shifts. Why are so many people rejecting extreme wealth inequality? Why are younger generations less interested in rigid beliefs and more focused on experience, equality, and meaning? These are not trends. They're signs that the collective is starting to tune into something deeper. The Christ principle isn't arriving. It's emerging through us. So when people ask, where's the world teacher? The answer might be simpler than we think. He's not coming to take center stage. He's coming to reflect back to us what we're already becoming. We often imagine great spiritual change as something distant or dramatic, but in reality, transformation happens through small, practical shifts. How we treat each other, what we prioritize, and how we respond to crisis. And today, those small shifts are happening everywhere. What's often missed in spiritual discussions is this. Global problems aren't just political or economic, they're symptoms of outdated thinking. Systems built on competition, fear, and division can't solve issues like climate change, inequality, or mental health. The old logic doesn't work anymore. And that's the exact condition that, according to esoteric teachings, sets the stage for a world teacher to reappear. A key insight here is that the breakdowns we're seeing, failing institutions, rising polarization, ecological stress, aren't signs of failure. They're signs of pressure. And pressure in nature and in human life always precedes a shift. Diamonds form under it. Growth happens through it. Spiritually, pressure means we're ready for a new way of operating. One of the most important shifts underway is a growing awareness that we're all in this together. Global problems can't be solved in isolation. Pandemics, economic collapses, climate change, these have shown us that individual survival is tied to collective well-being. This understanding isn't just ethical, it's evolutionary. It's a sign that humanity is outgrowing separation and starting to think like a single global organism. In this context, the Christ principle isn't just about personal morality, it's about collective responsibility. It means recognizing that how we shop, vote, parent, and work all contribute to a larger field of energy, and that field either supports or resists the shift we need. Spirituality today isn't limited to religion. Many people who've never stepped into a temple or church are practicing mindfulness, building inclusive communities, or organizing mutual aid networks. They may not call it spiritual, but it reflects the same values the Christ principle embodies: unity, compassion, justice. The point is this: the shift isn't coming, it's here. The world teacher's reappearance isn't a future event, it's part of an ongoing process. The more we recognize this, the more empowered we become to play our part. Most people expect change to come from the top: a new leader, a revolutionary invention, or some kind of global event. But what if the most powerful transformation begins in places that seem ordinary? What if the return of the world teacher isn't marked by spectacle, but by subtle shifts in how we live and relate to one another? That's the core of this new insight. The Christ principle isn't about command, it's about activation. It's not here to impose a new order, but to reveal the next step in human evolution. And crucially, that evolution isn't about becoming something we're not. It's about uncovering something we already are, but haven't fully realized. The Christ figure doesn't come to build a religion. He comes to restore connection between people, between humanity and the planet, and between our daily lives and our higher purpose. Think of it this way. For centuries, spirituality was mostly private. Now it's becoming social. It's not just about prayer or belief. It's about action, justice, sustainability, cooperation. These are the new spiritual practices. A major new insight here is that we don't have for perfect conditions. The shift begins when we start acting as if we're already living in the world we want to see. That's what awakening the Christ within really means. It means treating others with respect, even when it's inconvenient. It means valuing truth, even when lies are louder. It means creating solutions, even when the system resists them. And the world teacher doesn't do this work alone. According to esoteric teachings, he returns with a group, the Masters of Wisdom. These aren't mythical beings. They're said to be humans who've completed the journey of spiritual development and chosen to stay behind the scenes, guiding progress in quiet ways. You won't find them giving speeches or running governments. You'll find their influence in science that serves people, education that empowers, and economic ideas that prioritize fairness over profit. One practical way to understand their role: they are like architects of possibility. They don't build the structure themselves, but they give the blueprints. Humanity has to do the building, and we already are. Innovations in regenerative agriculture, collaborative governance, open source medicine, and community-driven economies reflect this blueprint in motion. These aren't fringe ideas anymore. They're prototypes for the future. The real takeaway is this: the Christ principle is not just arriving to us, it's emerging through us. Every time we choose cooperation over competition or compassion over judgment, we help lay the foundation for the new era. We've been taught to imagine the return of the Christ or world teacher as a miraculous event, something to watch for, something out there. But the biggest insight may be this: the real return isn't external, it's internal. It's a shift in how we see ourselves, others, and the purpose of life. The Christ principle doesn't come to rescue the world. It comes to awaken the part of us that can. And that awakening doesn't begin with grand speeches or sudden miracles. It begins when people start living differently, when we choose responsibility over blame, unity over division, and contribution over comfort. So what does real preparation look like? It means building right relationships, not just in personal life, but in politics, in business, in how we treat the planet. It means we stop waiting for permission to act with integrity. It means recognizing that spiritual growth isn't about escaping the world. It's about engaging with it more fully and more consciously. Spiritual evolution isn't separate from social evolution. The world teacher isn't coming to fix spiritual beliefs. He's coming to help us fix how we live. That includes how we design our economies, how we raise our children, and how we solve conflict. In this new era, spirituality means systems change. But there's another challenge: discernment. With so many voices claiming to know the truth, how do we tell the difference between ego-driven leaders and true service-oriented ones? The answer is simple: look for humility, not charisma. Look for service, not self-interest. The real teacher doesn't come to be worshipped. He comes to wake us up. If a message makes you feel empowered, responsible, and connected to others, it's probably aligned with the Christ principle. If it makes you feel fearful, divided, or superior, it's not. Ultimately, this isn't about belief. It's about action, about living the principles that define this new era: justice, sharing, dignity, and unity. That's what makes the world teacher's work possible. Not devotion, but participation. The invitation is in front of us now. not someday, not when the world is ready. We are the readiness. Each time someone chooses to live with compassion, to work toward justice, to speak truth without violence, the teacher's mission moves forward. The real question isn't, will he come? The real question is, will we rise to meet what's already here? Because in the end, the return of the world teacher is not a countdown, it's a call. And the answer isn't found in the sky. It's found in what we do next.